The rain was coming down hard that night. Marcus stood at his post outside the east wing of Kensington Palace, water dripping from his cap. He had been a royal protection officer for 11 years. He knew every crack in the stone walls, every shadow that moved after dark, every sound that belonged and every sound that did in single quotes tonight. Something didn't belong. It was just past midnight when he heard it. A soft scraping sound, metal on stone. Marcus turned slowly, his hand moving to his radio. The palace garden stretched out before him, dark and silent. The wind pushed through the hedges. Rain pattered on the gravel paths. Then he saw it. A figure, moving low along the outer wall. His heart kicked in his chest. Protocol said to call it in. Report suspicious activity. Wait for backup. But the figure was moving fast. Too fast. Heading toward the private residence. Toward where Prince George and his family were sleeping. Marcus made a choice. If you're watching this story and want more emotional real-life moments like this one, go ahead and subscribe. You won't regret it. He moved quickly across the lawn, staying in the shadows. The figure didn't see him. It's not yet. Marcus could make out more details now. A man, medium build, dark clothes. Something in his hand. The man stopped at a service entrance. He was trying the door. Marcus was 20 feet away when the door clicked open. The man slipped inside. Every instinct told Marcus to call for help. But help was minutes away. And minutes could mean everything. He knew that door led to a back stairwell. 3 flights up to the family quarters. If this man got that far, if he reached those rooms, the outcome could be unthinkable. Marcus pulled his flashlight and followed. The stairwell was dark. He could hear footsteps above him. Quick. Purposeful. The man knew where he was going. Marcus climbed fast, his boots soft on the stone steps. His breath was steady. His mind clear. He had trained for this. But training was different from the real thing. On the second floor, the footsteps stopped. Marcus froze. He waited, listening. The silence stretched out. Then he heard a door handle turn, the squeak of old hinges. He reached the landing and saw the man standing in the hallway. The dim emergency lights cast long shadows. The man was looking at something in his hand. A phone, a map, maybe. He hadn't heard Marcus yet. This was the moment. Marcus could still call it in. Wait for the armed response team. Do everything by the book. But the man was moving again. Walking toward the end of the hall. Toward the royal apartments. Marcus stepped forward. His voice was calm, firm. Stop right there. The man spun around. For a second, their eyes met. Marcus saw something in that look. Desperation. Fear, maybe. Something worse. The man ran. Marcus chased him down the hallway. The man was fast, but Marcus was faster. He tackled him just before the last door. They hit the floor hard. The man fought back, thrashing, kicking. Marcus held on. He'd trained in restraint tactics for years. But this man fought like his life depended on it. Then Marcus saw what the man had dropped, a knife, long serrated, lying. On the carpet, just inches away, his blood went. Cold Marcus pinned the man down with his knee. His hands shook as he reached for his radio. The man was still struggling, cursing under his breath. But Marcus had him. The knife sat there on the carpet. A reminder of what could have happened. Intruder on the second floor, Marcus said into the radio. East wing hallway. I need backup now. The response was immediate. Voices crackled through. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. Within seconds, 4 officers surrounded them. They pulled the man up, cuffed his hands behind his back. Someone kicked the knife away. Marcus stood up slowly. His legs felt weak. His heart was still racing. You all right, Marcus? One of the officers asked. He nodded. But he wasn't sure if that was true. The man was dragged away, shouting something about injustice. About how they didn't understand. His voice echoed down the stairwell until it faded completely. The senior officer, a woman named Catherine, walked over. She looked at the knife, then at Marcus. You tackled him alone. she asked. There wasn't time, Marcus said. Catherine studied him for a moment. Then she nodded. You did the right thing. But you also broke protocol. You know that. He did know. He'd gone after an intruder without backup. Without waiting for the armed team. It was a fireable offense. Maybe worse. I'll put it in my report, Marcus said quietly. Yeah, Catherine said. You will? The next morning, Marcus was called into the head of security's office. Commander James Harrington sat behind his desk, reading a file. He didn't look up when Marcus entered, just gestured to a chair. Marcus sat. He waited. Finally, Harrington closed the file. He looked at Marcus with tired eyes. Do you have any idea how many rules you broke last night? He asked. Yes, sir. You could have been killed. That man had a knife. He could have used it on you before backup arrived. No, sir. Harrington leaned back in his chair. He was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could hear the clock on the wall ticking. Each second felt like an hour. But you also stopped him, Harrington said finally. You stopped him before he got anywhere near the family. And for that, you have their gratitude. Marcus looked up. They know? Of course they know. Prince William personally asked to meet you later today. Harrington paused. But gratitude doesn't change the fact that you put yourself at risk, that you acted alone. We have protocols for a reason, Marcus. Protocols that keep everyone safe, including you. I understand, sir. I'm prepared to accept whatever consequences you're not being fired, Harrington interrupted. But you are being reassigned. Temporarily. We need to do a full review of last night. Interview everyone involved. Make sure we understand exactly what happened and why. Marcus nodded. Relief and disappointment mixed together in his chest. He wasn't losing his job, but he was being pulled from his post. From the work he'd dedicated his life to, where will I be assigned? He asked. Perimeter duty. Windsor Castle. For the next month? Windsor. It was a demotion in everything but name. Marcus had spent years working his way up to palace protection. Now, he'd be walking fences and checking gates. Yes, sir, he said. That afternoon, Marcus met Prince William in a private room. The prince shook his hand warmly. His grip was firm. I wanted to thank you personally, William said. What you did last night, protecting my family, that took real courage. I was just doing my job, Your Highness, William said. You went beyond your job. You put yourself in danger, and I won't forget that. They talked for a few more minutes. William asked about Marcus's background, his family, how long he'd been in protection. Marcus answered honestly. It felt strange talking to royalty like this, like a normal conversation. When he left the room, Marcus felt lighter somehow. The reassignment still stung. But knowing he'd made the right choice, that helped. What he didn't know was that the story was far from over. Windsor Castle was quieter than Kensington. Older, the walls held centuries of history. Marcus walked the perimeter twice a day. Checked locks. Monitored cameras. It was important work. But it wasn't the same. 3 weeks into his reassignment, he got a phone call. It was Commander Harrington. Marcus, I need you to come back to London today. Is everything all right, sir? Just get here. I'll explain when you arrive. The drive took 2 hours. Marcus spent most of it wondering what had happened. Had they found something new? Was he in more trouble than he thought? When he arrived at headquarters, Harrington was waiting with 2 other men. They wore suits. Government officials, maybe? Or intelligence services. Marcus, sit down, Harrington said. He sat. The 3 men looked at each other. Then Harrington spoke. The man you stopped that night? His name is David Brennan. He's been questioned extensively over the past few weeks, and what we've learned is disturbing. One of the suited men opened a folder. He slid a photograph across the table. It showed Brennan, and several other people Marcus didn't recognize. Brennan wasn't working alone, the man said. His voice was measured, professional, as part of a group. A small cell with very specific intentions regarding the royal family. Marcus felt his stomach drop. How many people? We've identified 4 others. 2 are in custody. 2 are still out there. The second suited man leaned forward. Here's what we know. Brennan was supposed to be a distraction. His plan was to get caught, to draw security attention to one area while the others moved in somewhere else. But I caught him before he could do anything, Marcus said. Exactly. Which disrupted their entire operation. But it also means they might try again, soon. Harrington cleared his throat. Marcus, we're telling you this because the intelligence suggests they know who stopped their plan. They know your name, and they're not happy about it. The room went quiet. Marcus processed what he was hearing. Someone wanted revenge. Against him, we can offer protection, Harrington said. We can relocate you temporarily, change your assignment, keep you out of sight until we catch the others. Marcus thought about it. About hiding. About running. About letting fear control his choices. No, he said finally. Axe. No, sir. With respect, I'm not hiding. If these people are still a threat to the royal family, then I want to help stop them, not disappear. The suited men exchanged glances. Harrington rubbed his face. You understand what you're saying? Harrington asked. You'd essentially be bait. We'd use you to draw them out. I understand. They might come for you. They might try to hurt you. I understand, Marcus repeated. One of the suited men smiled slightly. You're either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both, Marcus said. They spent the next 4 hours planning. The operation would be careful, controlled. Marcus would return to his normal duties at Kensington Palace. He'd be visible, routine, but he'd never actually be alone. Undercover officers would shadow him at all times. Surveillance would be everywhere. The goal was simple. Let the remaining conspirators think they had an opening, then catch them in the act. It was dangerous. Marcus knew that. But it was also the right thing to do. 2 days later, he was back at Kensington, walking his old route. Standing at his old post, everything looked the same, but everything felt different. He knew they were out there, watching him, waiting, and he knew that somewhere in the shadows, other officers were watching too, protecting him while he protected others. The first week passed without incident. Then the second. Marcus started to wonder if the intelligence was wrong. Maybe the conspirators had given up. Maybe they'd fled the country. Then, on a Thursday evening, something changed. Marcus was doing his evening rounds near the south gate. The sun had just set. The sky was deep purple. He heard footsteps behind him, quick, getting closer. He turned. A woman stood there. She looked nervous. Her hands were in her coat pockets. Excuse me, she said. I'm lost. Can you help me find the visitor entrance? Marcus studied her face. Something was off. The visitor entrance was clearly marked, and visiting hours had ended an hour ago. It's closed for the evening, he said carefully. You'll need to come back tomorrow. The woman didn't move. She just stood there, staring at him. Then she smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. You're Marcus, aren't you? The woman said, his hand moved toward his radio. Slowly, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. You ruined everything, she said. Her voice was cold now, bitter. David was supposed to succeed. We were supposed to send a message. Marcus pressed the alert button on his radio. 3 quick taps. The emergency signal. Help would come fast. But not fast enough if she had a weapon. I don't want any trouble, Marcus said. Just walk away. Right now. The woman laughed. It was a hollow sound. Walk away? After everything you took from us? From our cause? She pulled her right hand from her pocket. Marcus tensed. Ready to move? Ready to defend himself. But her hand was empty. She was reaching for something else. A phone. She held it up. I just wanted to see you, she said. To see the face of the man who destroyed our plans. So I could remember it. Then she turned and ran. Marcus started after her, but stopped. Something felt wrong. This was too easy. Too obvious. Within seconds, 3 undercover officers appeared from different directions. They chased the woman. Caught her before she reached the street. But Marcus stood there, his mind racing. This wasn't right. She'd given up too quickly. She'd wanted to be caught. "Marcus, you okay?" It was Catherine, jogging over to him. "It was a distraction," Marcus said suddenly. "She was a distraction." Catherine's eyes widened. "Where?" Marcus thought fast. The woman had approached from the south. She'd drawn security there, which meant if someone else was moving, they'd come from the north. "From the service areas, the loading dock," Marcus said. "North side." They ran. The loading dock was behind the kitchens. Staff used it for deliveries during the day. At night, it was empty, locked. But as Marcus and Catherine rounded the corner, they saw the door hanging open. Someone had forced it. Catherine called it in while Marcus entered. The hallway inside was dark. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. He moved carefully, listening. His heart pounded in his ears. Then he heard voices, low, urgent, coming from the stairwell ahead. Marcus recognized that stairwell. It led up to the residential areas. The same stairwell where he'd caught Brennan weeks ago. History was repeating itself. He moved to the doorway, peered inside. 2 figures were climbing the stairs. Both men, both carrying backpacks. Marcus couldn't see what was inside those bags, but he could guess Catherine appeared beside him. She'd drawn her weapon. "Back up," Marcus whispered. "2 minutes out," she whispered back. 2 minutes. The men would be on the 2nd floor by then. Maybe the 3rd. Too close to the family, Marcus made the same choice he'd made before. He stepped into the stairwell. Armed police. "Stop where you are." The men froze, turned for a second. Nobody moved. Then one of them dropped his backpack and reached inside his jacket. Catherine fired a warning shot. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. "Hands up now." The man's hand came out. Empty. Both men raised their arms. Marcus climbed the stairs slowly. Catherine covered him. When he reached the men, he pulled the first one down, cuffed him. Then the second. Catherine grabbed the backpacks, opened them carefully. Inside were spray paint cans, hammers, chains, tools for vandalism, for destruction, not weapons, not bombs, but still dangerous in their own way. "What were you planning?" Marcus asked. The first man just stared at him, his eyes full of hate. "You think you're protecting them," the man said, "but you're protecting a corrupt system. A symbol of everything wrong with this country." "Save it for the interview," Catherine said. More officers arrived. The men were taken away. The backpacks logged as evidence. The loading dock secured. Within an hour, the area was clear, safe. But Marcus felt exhausted, drained in a way he'd never felt before. Harrington showed up 30 minutes later. He looked at Marcus for a long moment. "You did it again," Harrington said. Double quotes, "Yes, sir." "You ran toward danger instead of waiting for backup." "Yes, sir," Harrington sighed. "You know, I can't keep overlooking this," Marcus nodded. He expected another reassignment. Maybe worse this time. "But I also can't ignore results," Harrington continued. "You've stopped 3 people in a month. You've disrupted an entire conspiracy. And you did it by trusting your instincts. By acting when action was needed, sir. I'm not reassigning you, Marcus. I'm promoting you. Senior Protection Officer. You'll lead a team. Train others. Teach them what you know." Marcus was speechless. "You'll still be in danger sometimes," Harrington said. "That comes with the job. But you'll have people watching your back, just like you watch theirs." That night, Marcus stood at his post one last time. His old post. Tomorrow, everything would change. New responsibilities, new challenges. But tonight, he was just a guard, watching over people he'd never met. People who trusted him to keep them safe. And he'd proven he would. 6 months passed. Marcus adjusted to his new role. He trained younger officers, taught them about instinct, about protocol, about the balance between following rules and making split-second decisions that could save lives. The conspiracy was over. All 5 members were in custody. The trials were ongoing, Marcus had testified twice already. Each time, he relived that night. The rain, the footsteps, the knife on the carpet. But life moved forward. His team respected him. They listened when he spoke. They asked questions. They learned. Marcus discovered he was good at teaching, at passing on what he knew. Then one afternoon in June, he got a message. Prince William wanted to see him again. Marcus arrived at Kensington Palace on a warm, sunny day. So different from that rainy night months ago. He was escorted to a private garden. William was there with his wife, Catherine, and their 3 children. Prince George was playing with a toy airplane. He looked up when Marcus approached. Just a boy, unaware of how close danger had come. "Marcus," William said, walking over. "Thank you for coming, of course, Your Highness." William gestured to a bench. They sat. Catherine joined them while the children played nearby. "I wanted to speak with you properly," William said. "Not in some formal setting. Just here." "As a father?" Marcus nodded. "You saved my son's life," William continued. His voice was steady but emotional. "You saved my family. And I never got to properly thank you for that." "You already thanked me, sir." "No," William said. "I thanked you as a prince, as someone performing a duty, but I never thanked you as a father, as a husband, as a human being who almost lost everything." Catherine reached over and touched Marcus's hand. "We think about it every day," she said softly. "What could have happened? What you prevented? How different our lives would be." Marcus felt his throat tighten. He'd thought about it too, in quiet moments, in dreams. The sliding door of chance. How one choice had changed everything. "I just did what anyone would do," Marcus said. "No," William said firmly. "You did what you would do. And that's different. Most people freeze. Most people wait. Most people follow the rules even when the rules don't fit the situation. But you acted. You risked yourself. That's not common, Marcus. That's rare." George ran over holding his toy plane. "Daddy, watch." He threw the plane. It glided across the grass. William smiled, watched his son, then looked back at Marcus. "He'll never know how close he came," William said quietly. "We'll never tell him. But I'll know, and I'll remember that a man named Marcus stood between him and harm. And that matters. More than I can say." They talked for another hour. About Marcus's life, his family, his plans. It was strange and wonderful and surreal all at once. By the time Marcus left, the sun was setting. The garden glowed gold. As he walked to his car, Marcus felt something shift inside him. A weight he hadn't known he was carrying lifted away. He'd spent months questioning his choices, wondering if he'd been reckless, if he'd been stupid, if he'd just been lucky. But William's words had settled something. He'd done the right thing, and sometimes that was enough. Marcus drove home through London traffic. The city was alive with evening light. People everywhere, living their lives, unaware of the dangers that sometimes lurked in shadows. But there were people like Marcus, people who stood guard, who watched, who acted when action was needed. When he got home, his daughter ran to meet him. She was 7, full of energy and questions. "Daddy, did you see the prince again?" "I did." "What was he like?" Marcus picked her up, held her close. "He was nice and very grateful." "Why?" "Because sometimes people need help, and it's important to help them." She thought about that, then nodded. "You're a hero, Daddy." "I'm just a guard, sweetheart." "A hero guard," she insisted. Maybe she was right. Maybe heroes weren't people with capes and powers. Maybe they were just ordinary people who made hard choices when it mattered. Who stood up when others might have looked away. That night, Marcus sat on his back porch. The stars were out. The air was cool. He thought about all the people he'd protected over the years. Most of them never knew his name, never knew he existed. But that was okay. That was the job. To be invisible, to be vigilant, to be ready. His phone buzzed. A text from Harrington. "New assignment next week. Royal Tours of Scotland. 3 weeks. You interested?" Marcus smiled. He typed back a single word. Yes. 5 years later, Marcus stood in a conference room at security headquarters. In front of him sat 20 new recruits. Young men and women who wanted to protect the royal family, who wanted to serve, who wanted to make a difference. He looked at their faces, saw his younger self in their eyes. The eagerness, the determination, the belief that they could handle anything. "Let me tell you a story," Marcus began. "About a rainy night and a choice that changed my life." He told them about that night. About hearing the scraping sound. About seeing the figure in the shadows. About the moment when he had to decide between protocol and instinct. "I broke the rules," Marcus said. "I went after an intruder alone, without backup, without following procedure, and by the book, I should have been fired." The recruits shifted in their seats, uncertain where this was going. "But I also stopped a threat," Marcus continued. "I prevented something terrible. And that taught me the most important lesson of my career." He paused. "Let the silence build. Rules exist for a reason. They keep us safe. They create order. They establish standards. But rules can't account for every situation. There will be moments in your career when you have to choose, when you have to trust yourself, when you have to act, even if it means risking everything." One recruit raised her hand. "How do you know when to break the rules?" "You don't," Marcus said honestly. "Not for certain, but you listen to your training. You trust your instincts, and you ask yourself one question: will waiting make things worse? If the answer is yes, then you act. If the answer is no, then you wait for backup." Walked to the window, looked out at the city. "It's the night I'm telling you about. Waiting would have meant letting an armed intruder get closer to a child's bedroom. That wasn't acceptable. So I acted. But I was also lucky. Lucky he didn't use that knife. Lucky I was fast enough. Lucky backup arrived when it did." Marcus turned back to the recruits. "Some people will call you a hero when you take risks. Others will call you reckless. The truth is usually somewhere in between. But here's what matters. Can you live with your choices? Can you sleep at night knowing you did what you thought was right?" He saw them processing this, thinking about their own futures, their own choices. "You'll face fear in this job," Marcus said. "Real fear. The kind that makes your hands shake and your heart race. And when that happens, you'll want to run. You'll want to hide. You'll want someone else to make the decision. But you won't run. You'll stand there. You'll face it. Because that's what we do. We stand between danger and the people who can't protect themselves. That's the job. That's the calling." The training session lasted 3 more hours. Marcus covered tactics, communication, threat assessment, all the technical skills they needed, but he kept coming back to that night, to that choice, because that was what defined him now. Not his promotion, not his commendations, but that single moment when he decided to run toward danger instead of away from it after the session ended. A young recruit approached him. Her name was Sarah. She looked nervous. "Sir, can I ask you something? Of course, do you ever regret it? Going after him alone?" Marcus thought about that. He'd asked himself the same question hundreds of times. "Oh," he said finally, "I don't regret it. But I respect how dangerous it was. And I'm grateful it worked out. Not every risk pays off. Not every gamble wins. But in that moment, with what I knew, I made the choice I could live with." Sarah nodded. "Thank you, sir." Marcus watched her walk away. Saw her talking excitedly with other recruits. They'd all go on to have their own careers, their own stories, their own moments of choice. Some would become legends. Others would serve quietly. But all of them would stand guard. All of them would protect. And that was enough. That evening, Marcus went back to Kensington Palace. Not for work, just to visit. To walk the grounds where it had all happened. He stood at the East Wing, where he'd first heard that scraping sound. The rain was gone now, replaced by stars and moonlight. Everything was peaceful, calm. A younger guard was on duty. She nodded to him respectfully. "Evening, sir, evening." Quiet night. Very quiet. The way I like it. Marcus smiled. Those are the best kind. He stayed for a few more minutes, then headed home. Back to his family. Back to his life. The life he'd built. The life he'd protected. The life he'd chosen. Because that's what it all came down to. Choice. He'd chosen to act. Chosen to risk. Chosen to stand when others might have waited. And that choice had defined everything that followed. Years from now, people might forget his name. The story might fade. The details might blur. But somewhere in some training session, an instructor would tell the tale of a guard who heard a sound on a rainy night. Who saw danger approaching? Who made a choice? And that story would inspire another person, another guard, another protector. And the cycle would continue. Because heroes aren't born. They're made in moments. In choices. In the space between fear and action, Marcus had lived that truth. And now he taught it, passed it on, kept it alive. The rain would come again. The danger would return. But there would always be people standing guard, watching, waiting, ready to risk everything when everything was at stake. And that made all the difference. That was enough.